Welcome to my F1 channel. Welcome to Peter on Pole. My name is Peter in pole position. We are in the lead up to Drive to Survive Season 3. And I thought as we're leading up to that time, I'm going to be doing reviews from the very first season up until Season 3 is out. We will be doing reviews of every single episode. But right now we are in Season 1, Episode 6, All or Nothing. It does start things off with off the heels of Episode 5, where of course Force India was the main story. They'd gone into administration, and then we kick things off with the savior, the one that rescues them in this situation is Lawrence Stroll of Williams. He's now taking his money out of Williams and bringing it into Force India, and oh my god, what kind of story this is. Now what this means, of course, Lawrence Stroll has his son Lance Stroll, and so Lance Stroll is now going to move over to Force India, which means there is a position that is up for grabs, which means there is a position that is being lost. And the two teammates of Force India currently are Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon. We go back to Esteban Ocon once again, and you get the sort of sad story about him. A lot of sad moments, let's say, in his situation, because I think Netflix is trying to make us feel sorry for him. Because of like his upbringing and how, they didn't have money and he somehow broke through, his talent got him where he is. And then he's got a situation where he could lose his seat this year. So it's kicking things off already with, let's feel sorry for Esteban Ocon. Will Buxton explains very well that talent in Formula One gets you so far, but the money is really where it's at. This is what the teams are looking for in order to improve performance of the car, performance of the team, in order to get more points, to make more money, and to gain championships. So it's always tough with Formula One. You've got to have some talent about you, of course, but when you're a superstar talent, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you your seat year in, year out, because if there's no money, there's almost no point of the driver. Now, in this situation, Sergio Perez is the man who brings the money to Force India. He was really the main guy, if you will, at Force India. Been there for several years. He came in with a lot of money from Mexico. But now Lawrence Stroll is bringing his money. Money isn't necessarily the only thing that they got to think about now. Now they can really think about, well, we've got backing. We've got some money behind us. We need to have the quality and the talent. Esteban Ocon is known to be a superstar talent. Well, not superstar, but he's known to be a great talent as a young kid, whereas Sergio Perez is a very established, well-seasoned Formula One driver. He's no joke himself. Now, the rivalry between Sergio Perez and Ocon goes back to last year in 2017, where there were crashes in Canada, there were crashes in Baku and in Belgium. I mean, it was not good. It was not good at all. They were costing each other points. They were costing the team points. And there came a point where the team stepped in and said, listen, you guys are no longer racing each other anymore. When you're near each other, do not, race for grid position. Respect each other's space, keep it clean. We want to get both cars back at the end of the race. So, it got really, really tense. And the way Netflix sort of portrayed that picture of what was happening, they flashed back to Canada and Baku and Belgium as well. They flashed back to all these places, and you just see that, oh my God, this tension is really big. For a team that has two that are teammates, they really didn't like each other. They weren't necessarily like very foul or evil, but on the track, the way they've had these accidents, I mean, they're crashing each other into walls. They're closing the gap. They're braking late. They're very, very dangerous driving. And one point I remember Ocon saying that this Sergio's about to be a dad. Does he want to die? Kind of thing. Like there was a kid on the way or whatever. And yeah, you get this real big rivalry between the two, and you think, my goodness, this could. This is more than just rivalry for being the best driver in the team. This is now trying to keep your seat for next year. So there's a few things to add on into this, literally all or nothing. We now get to Spa in Belgium in 2018. So we've come back to present day, and it's raining. The rain's come down in Spa. The tensions are high. I love the cinematic view that Netflix portray. It looks brilliant. It looks amazing. It looks like it's here for an epic kind of qualifying session, because water, rain, whatever, throws all the drivers off. It throws all the teams off. So you get surprises in qualifying. You get surprises in the race. Certain people win races that way. Teams like Toro Rosso at the time and other teams like that, they end up winning races as well. And you sort of think, wow, how has that happened? It's not the Mercedes and Ferraris that do well in these sort of conditions. But Esteban Ocon talks about, the difference between driving in the wet and in the dry. And even Will Buxton gets involved as well. And it creates this picture for a person who doesn't watch Formula One, who hasn't been into the sport before, and is trying to, understand and learn. It's that thing of, guys, when it's raining, this is a different ball game. When you talk about the speed at which these Formula One cars go at, Will Buxton mentions that, you have to have lightning quick reactions, because anything can happen. And then Netflix shows like montages of close calls, close crashes, slippery surfaces in this situation. Esteban Ocon talks about how as a kid he used to drive in the rain all the time, and the kids around him would like stop racing because they didn't fancy it. It was cold and whatnot, and he said even in the rain I would drive and I would constantly go for it. I'll be the only one driving, and then at the end, I'll cry to my mom because my hands are frozen solid. But as he's racing, he doesn't feel that at all. So Ocon's sort of bigging up himself in a way of like, this is something I'm actually quite used to as well. This works for me. Whereas for other drivers, it's going to be a bit, if you're from the sunnier parts of the world, you're not going to experience, for example, let's say a Checo, he's not going to experience this sort of condition. Fantastic qualifying from the Force India team. Checo Perez finishing in 4th, whereas Esteban Ocon in 3rd. And so those are quite two surprising results. Locking up the second row of the grid, it was very, very well done by Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez. Then Lewis Hamilton, it moves over to Lewis Hamilton. This is the press conference. The top 3 drivers in qualifying go to the press conference. So Ocon's there, Hamilton's there, Vettel's there. And Hamilton sort of mentions in Formula One, it's not always about the talent. Some teams just look for the money. But I hope somebody like Ocon, who's got bags of talent, finds a great car. And it was almost like, even now, you got the Hamilton approval in a way. So things were gearing up towards Ocon, it looked like. And it seems at this present time. And it's that thing of, Mercedes you don't get enough of in this season. You don't get any mention of Mercedes nor Ferrari at this point, so far anyway. And just having that Hamilton line was very, very important to the piece, because it brings together of what, because in your mind you're thinking, I wonder who's going to get it. As you're watching, you're making guesses. You're sort of thinking, well, Perez should get it, isn't it? Because he's got the money. He's been in the team long, and it's a no-brainer. When you've got Lance Stroll coming in, who is a rookie, not a rookie, but he's a young driver, and he hasn't got quite the talent as, say, Perez. Maybe even neither like Ocon either. But you start thinking about it then. But then when you think, well, the money's covered for, do we really need Sergio? Ocon is the one that's being talked up. Now you're seeing Ocon here in the top 3 in Belgium. You're starting to play around a little bit in your mind of, I wonder where he could go next. I wonder what could happen. But yeah, the Lewis Hamilton line, I mean, it really put a huge amount of stock in Ocon. And it also makes you think, makes the other teams think, maybe he's right here. We shouldn't have to just worry about the best, the guy with the most money. And there's a line that the commentator says at the end of qualifying in Spa. He says, what a month for Force India. They go into admin, they get rescued, they get taken over, they turn up to Spa and they lock out the second row of the grid. And I'm sure everybody went to bed that Saturday night thinking, my goodness, what a crazy month it's been. Bizarrely, nothing on the race. We just moved to Singapore. And as you've got the highs in Belgium, you've then got the lows in Singapore. It is not a good weekend for the Force India team. Would you believe it? Sergio Perez hits Ocon into the wall on the opening lap in Singapore. Oh dear, 2017 all over again. And then you see this unusual side to Sergio Perez. He's very, very frustrated in the race. He's now trying to overtake Sergei Sorokin of the Williams, and he's struggling to do so. But you can also see the way he's driving is very aggressive. It's very un-Sergio-like. He's somebody who is very competent, very matured. As I said, he's a seasoned Formula One driver. But we were seeing rookie things from him. We were seeing as if he was stepping into the car for the first time. It was very, very odd. The way he was pushing, and sort of not panicking, but he just felt like he kept complaining on the radio, this guy's moving all over the place with under braking, and you can only move, I think, 1 or 2 ways under braking. But yeah, it was just it was unusual. And then Netflix sort of portrayed the fact that the pressure is now getting to him, because it's that seat now that everyone's thinking about. more so. And it's a case of, I need to stamp my authority in this. But when you sort of want it too much, it can lead to irrational reactions or irrational thinking. He gets past Sorokin, but as he's past him, before he sort of clearly passes him and then closes the door, he closes the door sort of halfway. He rushes the overtake, and then they hit as well. And so he's got damage to his car. Very, very weird day for Sergio. That was rookie behavior right there. Will Buxton makes this great point that, you know, he's driving like a rookie, but he needs to show himself as a leader, because what Force India will want next season is somebody, you know, competent, not somebody that they're gonna have to you know, baby step the way through. And no disrespect to Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll is in his second year at the time in Formula One. So we've already got one that's sort of up and coming and young and whatever else. But we need somebody who is going to be firm. Who out of Ocon and Sergio is going to be the leader? Who's going to be the one that's going to help the team progress? Not cost them points, precious points. We get back to Ocon after the race. We get to Ocon in his gym in France. And, you know, he's narrating on top, talking about how important the next few races are. I need to show now and stamp my authority that, you know, I should have the seat next season. Again, it's almost like, again, you're sort of thinking about Ocon, like, you know, because I don't know if naturally this happens, you sort of pull your heart towards one or the other. You might have a favourite. But it's kind of difficult when you just watch this show in isolation. When you watch Netflix Drive to Survive in isolation and you don't really watch the season that's actually happened, it's difficult to pick a side. I think it leans more towards Ocon in this sense. I think the popularity will be Ocon because of, I guess, the upbringing. You know, when you see somebody coming from nothing and they're trying their best to win and to become something, you do favour the underdog story. Sergio Perez comes from money, but he's a good driver as well. So it's a difficult one. But again, you know, I just felt like Netflix was sending us in that direction. We get to the Mexican Grand Prix, Sergio Perez's home country, and mate, they announce Sergio Perez is going to be racing for Force India next season. I think they're going to be called Racing Point Force India next season. Wow. Esteban Ocon is without a race next season. Well, he's not going to be at Force India next season. Let's put it that way. Devastating news. It cuts to Ocon a few shots later, and you start to feel for him because he can't explain why this has happened. And I think that's more so the hard part. And just with life in general, when things happen to you in life, it's not necessarily what's happened, it's the why. And when there's no why attached to it, it makes it that much harder to overcome, to get through. And you feel deeply sorry for him. You feel sorry for him. In a sense, because, and for me, I feel sorry for him because I feel like if Sergio was not given the race next year, I feel like he could have got a team elsewhere, somebody that did need money, so he could have got himself in a team anyway. Ocon's a bit of a different kettle of fish because he doesn't bring money with him, he brings talent. And as Will said at the top of the show, the top of the episode, that talent gets you so far. It's the money which teams want so they can enhance the performance for the car. So elation for Sergio in Mexico, in his hometown, but major disappointment. Again, they go back to the fact that, you know, he came up from nothing. His mum and dad didn't have any money. They slept in caravans just to go from race to race when he was a kid. You imagine that though? Could you imagine like your parents doing that for you, and how that must make you feel? In a sense of like, wow, what a loving family. But, you know, the pressure must be so intense. You must feel like you have to deliver. And I'm sure he felt like a sense of disappointment, like he's let his parents down. They've worked so hard for this. But at the same time, he was a guy who's also very confident in himself. He knew he was good. So it's so bizarre. It's such a strange circumstance of events. By the way, the home crowd for Sergio Perez was epic. It was mage. It must be fantastic for a Formula One driver to go to their home race. And when you're like the only Mexican on the grid, and then you go to Mexico, the fields must be gigantic. The crowd was epic. Of course, I'm missing fans at Formula One stadiums. I'm missing not stadiums, but the Mexican Grand Prix is held in a baseball stadium, which is so strange. Half of the track is anyway. But yeah, it just and just that whole togetherness of the crowd and the roar, and it's just I was so like, I can't wait for Mexican Grand Prix. But of course, I want it with fans. Now Ocon has to perform to save his life, because although Sergio's secured his seat, it doesn't mean the battle is over. Now the battle is more in Ocon's place, and he's having to fight for his career. Sergio, of course, will want to do well in Mexico, as it's his home Grand Prix. The fans are all behind him. Martin Brundle on the commentary sort of says, you're looking at a man, this is Sergio Perez, who you can see he's got the weight of the crowd on him. He's somebody who's waiting with anticipation and also with a lot of stress. So it's that combination of two, what goes through the driver's mind. And it's a great little insight that you get from Martin Brundle, who has been a Formula 1 driver before. Shout out to Mark Brindle. Esteban Ocon has an absolute mare at the start of the race. He has damage on his front wing, like half of his front wing's missing. And he goes into the pits. I think he was 11th at the time. He's gone to the back of the grid now in a matter of 3 laps or something like that. And yeah, he's gone into the pits, having to rearrange his front wing. And again, as he gets into the pit stop, it's the camera and the way the director deals with the scenario is everything is slowed down incredibly slow. Pit stops are fast, so they slow it down. And in that slowing down, again, Ocon's narrating and saying, the mechanics, they do the fastest job, in the world, but it takes up so much time on the track. And you're just thinking in your mind, how do I recover this? How do I recover from this situation with everything that's on Ocon's shoulders? I mean, this is a real test right now of character for Ocon. He's learning some growing pains in this situation. How does he overcome this situation right now? And it's just a great moment. This is more than racing. There's so many things that are in these episodes that are just so tremendous, and it's about life, if that makes sense. It's about personality, character development. It's all of the above. Ocon needs to make sure that the pressure does not get to him to the extent where he blows everything. Meanwhile, for Sergio, everything seemed to be going well. He was going through the track. He was doing a few overtaking. Crowd were loving it, lapping it up. And then all of a sudden, in Formula One, and this is what happens in Formula One, period, is that his car, all of a sudden, he loses brakes, he said. And he couldn't quite get the car to slow down as much as he could. He was on the radio saying, "What is going on? My brakes are gone," sort of thing. And of course, that's so incredibly dangerous. And in that moment, Esteban Ocon then ends up overtaking. Esteban Ocon sees Perez about 3 cars down, and he sort of goes on the radio and says, "What's going on?" And the team radio tells Ocon, Sergio Perez has lost brakes. That's the situation. And he just said, "All right, copy." And in an instant, he's overtaking Perez. He's overtaking a few other cars with him as well. And then Perez has to retire the car. The car is getting worse. He can't repair the car. He can't recover, and he has to retire from the race. Tragic for Sergio Perez in his home Grand Prix. The home fans, every Mexican man and woman, were there to see Perez do well, and then to see him retire the car, and getting beat and getting passed by Ocon, his teammate. It was just, it was crushing. Just a crazy exchange of emotions. Ocon starts low. The day starts low for him with the announcement of the signing for Checo, and then it goes. They transfer where Perez is retiring. Ocon's overtaking him. Ocon's having to repair from a front wing issue in the first lap. So he's been dealt with a few blows here, Ocon, but he seems to be rising up and standing up tall again, which is, it's just, again, it's funny because Formula, Netflix, this is not fiction. What I'm saying? Netflix wouldn't know what was going to happen and what was going to come of the season. But they've been getting great content for this. And I guess it just shows that, when you think you know Formula One, you absolutely don't. This is the reason why a fan like me would ask and tell a fan, this is why you should watch Formula One, because it's not as simple as cars just run around the track. Oh yeah, Hamilton wins every race. Blah, blah, blah. There is so much more stories in the actual, in the sport. It's incredible. There's too much. I mean, Netflix tried to do 1 season in 10 episodes, and hats off to them. They did an incredible job, but it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. Then Esteban Ocon, imagine he's performing well. He's meeting up with Brandon Hartley in the Toro Rosso, and he hits him twice. And it's just like, oh my God, like this frustration is really getting to Ocon as well. Perez is out of the race, so he doesn't have to think about him, but he's obviously thinking about his career. It's more than Perez. For him, this is more than that. It's all or nothing. In the end, however, you know, there's a few laps to go. Ocon is on the radio saying, guys, I don't know what damage I've got. And they're just saying, look, just hang it, just stick it out there, keep going, keep finishing, and let's see if you can bring this car home. And that's what's really the strength at the minute. A good result will be to get the car back, basically. And he finishes in P11, which outside the points, but when you consider the race he had, you know, the amount of situations he had to go through, even just like the emotion of everything that's gone on, the breaking news of that day, then the race itself was absolutely chaotic. And he finishes the car in P11. He brings a car home, whereas his teammate obviously retires. No issue on his fault, not on his part or anything like that. But Esteban Ocon, you got a great sense of resilience from him. You got a great sense of perseverance. He showed good character throughout the whole thing. And this is a man with a huge amount of weight on his shoulders. So if anything, it made Ocon look absolutely brilliant. And for teams to look around and say, hang on a minute, we might need to tap him up. And there was a rumor linked with him and Williams. At the end of the episode, you know, you get the sad music that comes on with Ocon. It's a bit like, I get it. I get why Netflix have done that. The problem I have with it a little bit, in this scenario, I don't mind it, what I'm about to say next. But before, it was kind of like the same kind of tune it felt like. It probably wasn't, but it felt like the same music was being played. And it almost it tried to persuade you to think like this. And I don't like it when things do that. I might be exaggerating that. I might be way off on that. But that's how I feel. That's how I felt when I was watching it, is that it kind of tried to force me into their opinion of things. And for me, it was a case of, you know, let me figure that out for myself. Let me feel sorry for him genuinely. Like I do, but it was a case of, I felt like it was shoved down my throat a little bit because of how many times he's mentioned his upbringing, his parents, no money, how hard life was growing up. We got it in the previous episode, and now we've got it here as well. So it's a bit of a, you know, I feel like, okay, I'm with you, I get it, but yeah, I don't know, I just felt funny about that. And yeah, I'm just hoping that, yeah, the sad music was really like, it did make me feel sorry for him. Don't get me wrong, it worked, and that's what they've come to do. You know, Ocon just reflects on his time at the situation that he's facing right now, and then he says, you know, to close sort of the scene, he says, you know, I hope people will remember me for the last 2 years I did in Formula One, and if they do, this is a good driver. They should have them on their team. Fades to black. And then the script on the line, just a bit of wording on at the end of the scene, is Esteban Ocon did not secure a seat in 2019, and it's just like, oh, you feel so bad, and the episode ends, and it's just like, oh, don't leave me like that. You know, I'm trying to watch Drive to Survive to it's a feel good thing for me. You know, I'm like, oh, this is great, this is epic, and and you feel great, you know, but I felt like I think there's 2 episodes so far that's made me feel sad, and I'm just like, oh, okay, right, okay, fine, fair enough, you know. But yeah, it seems like that story in that chapter is now closed. Esteban Ocon doesn't get a seat in 2019, which is heartbreaking. But that is Formula One. That is the problem, and that is the cutthroatness of it all. And credit to Netflix, they had to show everything. They didn't want to just show the great glitz and glamour, the fun parts, the exciting, thrilling parts. You have to show the real life, the heartfelt ones, the painful times. And they did that very well. And I felt deeply sorry for Ocon, as I did then, because I thought, like, how can a driver like him not be on the grid? Like, it was crazy, because he was good. He was very good. And I think, you know, people like Lance Stroll was getting so much stick because it was like, really? You're just there because you're dad, you know? We should really get Ocon in that seat. But hey, that is how the episode ended. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of that episode. Remember, we are walking to Drive to Survive Season 3 when that comes out shortly. So we're going through every episode up until Season 3 and going through all the episodes of that. They'll be coming out as soon as the episodes are out. They'll be one after the other, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, make sure you've got your footage, make sure you've watched it, and make sure you're ready for the reaction and for the review. And let me know your thoughts. Like the video if you do like. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel as well. That will really help. And with that said, people, lights out.